Okay, morning. So today we are looking at the film Black Panther and how it's marketed. So through the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to just talk through how a film like Black Panther finds its audience. Okay. So firstly, Black Panther is clearly a blockbuster. It's a film that is designed to reach a mass audience around the world. For Black Panther, as it says on the slide here, what the main thrust behind the marketing campaign was to try and make it a cultural event. So the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you're all aware of that. You all go and see those films. They dominate the cinema at the moment. When this one came out, it was doing something slightly different. That's why we look at this particular film, because as a cultural event release, there are some really interesting strands that will go down as we get into the lesson, as we get into the actual analysis of it later on. So what it says on the slide is the concept was to make the 18th MCU film Black Panther a cultural event across a variety of media and platforms, raising its profile from being another superhero film into something more politically resonant. So as I always say, a film like this is the sort of entrance for you to learn some quite interesting things about the world beyond just the film itself. So you will have seen these films, as I said, but we go down lots of different routes and learn about many different things, as we'll see in the slides. Things like colonialism we touch on, we think about the black experience on screen and things like that. So on this slide, there is something that I would want you to read outside of the class before you come, where we're looking at why it is a major milestone in the release of MCU films. And that is something I will always encourage you to do. I believe your literacy will improve in general if you're reading things outside of the classroom. So I do try to show you lots of things like that. Just to get you thinking about the historical and social context of what we're looking at. So the predominant focus when we're looking at Black Panther is the way that it's marketed. So the trailer, I've just taken a still from the trailer, that is something that we spend a lot of time looking at. So it's only 2 minutes 18 seconds long, but we will watch that over and over again, and we start to think about how it's using the content to attract the audience. So what you can see there is it's had 50,752,000 views at this stage. So that's incredible. That one will probably go up as well, because the second film that's been delayed for a while will be coming out soon as well. But what you can see on this slide, I've picked out 5 different posters, and they're all very different. The reason they're all very different is they came out in different territories around the world. So obviously we're here in Europe and we see this film. We'll probably see more traditional marketing of that particular film. But if you go to the different territories around the world, it's marketed in a different way. And that's what we'll spend time looking at when we get into the film marketing. Thinking about reasons why, thinking about an audience in a different part of the world, why they need to be marketed towards in a different way. So this is a fantastic sort of task that we do, in that I'll get different groups and different people looking at the different posters and trying to work that out and trying to find the formula as to why has this particular poster or that particular poster been constructed in the way it has. So if you're thinking about the way a film reaches its audience, obviously social media these days is huge. The first thing you do before you brush your teeth in the morning is check your phone. That audience obviously needs to be captured and needs to be encouraged to come and see these products, and we look at how that happens. So I mentioned this earlier. For me, as someone who's a little older, the MCU kind of passed me by for a long time until I realised how dominant it was with the younger generation. So if you have Disney Plus, you will obviously know that all the Marvel content is on there at the moment. And what we describe this as is a web of intertextuality, so you will know the references in different films, the next ones that are coming out for the next 5 years, how that works in terms of keeping you as a fandom interested. Okay, so for me, I would much more pick and choose ones that I like. I'm not as interested in the whole of the MCU. We used to look at Jessica Jones as a text because that was part of the MCU. But obviously Black Panther is part of this. And this web of intertextuality is a really interesting concept in respect of seeing how all these products drive each other's success and drive revenue and make people interested in merchandise, in looking at reviews online, looking at the films, buying DVDs, downloading, streamlining everything so that people will buy every product relating to the MCU. This is huge business. Disney and Marvel being together is a massive conglomerate, and we'll talk about that as we get more into that particular analysis of the product. So it is important to realise that we do look at the industry side, and there's just some key sort of information on the graph. Obviously, on the images, sorry. On the left-hand side, you've got key information about Disney, and then what we see here are some of the brands between television and film and elsewhere. When Disney bought Marvel, the reason it bought Marvel is it could see the success that it was going to have. So like in our subject, we will look at that across a number of different industries, working out how vertical and horizontal integration works and how money is made, how money is king, how that potentially, ideologically, causes us to question the creativity of certain institutions, directors, how much we actually are seeing in terms of new ideas and not just generic templates. But when you see images like this and you understand the level of business and the understanding and the level of thought that goes in to the product, that's another really interesting thing to consider as well. So ratings wise, we'll look at how Black Panther got its rating, because common sense suggests that if Black Panther was an 18, the audience would be much smaller. And the reason the audience would be much smaller is people like you wouldn't be able to go because you're 16, 17. Obviously, some of you will be 18 by the time you leave. So we look at the kind of content in Black Panther to see where it gets its rating from. And obviously, the filmmakers would want it to be a 12A or below, really, to try and attract the perfect audience. If you're getting up to 15 and 18, as you know, there are things in there that potentially would need to be censored for a younger audience. Just as an aside to that, a really good example that we always talk about is the Hunger Games, because essentially the Hunger Games is a franchise where young people are killing each other, but the rating is around here, so there are some important ideological questions there. So we also look at things like star power, a list of the stars in there of the film. This is something I really love exploring, the idea of Afrofuturism and how the black experience has been shown on screen and how it's been represented, and Black Panther is a fantastic example of that and at the forefront of that. As I mentioned earlier, a bit of colonialism. One of the theorists that we think about linked to intertextuality is Henry Jenkins. And that's what we've covered today. So that's like an introduction to the advertising of a blockbuster film like Black Panther. I look forward to being able to take you through it. Thank you.